Hey there. Are you tired of waiting for the next episode of It's Probably Not Aliens? Well, we've got some good news for you. On Nebula, our streaming service, you can get access to all our episodes a week early. That's right, you'll never have to wait again to hear Scott and I debunk the latest ancient astronaut theory or get a movie fact wrong. But that's not all. Nebula is home to dozens of content creators we know you like, so you can find all your favorites in one place. Plus, we post content on there that you won't find anywhere else. And the best part? By signing up for Nebula at nebula.tv/probablyNotAliens, you're directly supporting the show and both of us. So don't wait any longer. Join Nebula today and listen to the next episode right after this one.
So presumably if there's such a thing as a cold opening, there must be something called a hot opening, right? What is that?
That's just where you start
jump into it, going in hot.
That was the episode that started with Scott going, "Shut up, everybody, shut up.
Everyone shut up. We're doing an episode right now." That was the hot opening that we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a couple episodes ago, there was like one time where we want to reset. Some people, we're over 100 episodes. Some people don't know our whole thing. We're going to start like a regular episode. And then we just went into it like, shut up, everyone. We're doing a regular episode today.
But yeah, it's when you don't do 10 minutes where you talk about movies or something. And I get something
normally
wrong
what we do.
Did a movie happen? I don't know. I haven't seen a movie.
I saw The Holdovers. It was good. We were not going to talk about it.
No.
This is not a movie podcast. We're talking about Stonehenge. This is the last image on our podcast graphic that people see when they load up this podcast on whatever they listen to us on or watch us on. We're on YouTube.
Sat on it for a long time.
Yeah.
Yes.
109 seems like just the right amount of time to wait to do one of the most iconic pieces of ancient alien ephemera.
Yes.
And of course, because this is a amazing piece of ancient engineering, I tapped in the sense that I had some contact with, and also am just like a really big fan of Justin Rosniak, who's here.
Hello, I'm here.
Yeah.
Hello.
And you're here to give us some engineering / quips. But Justin, you're the. Let me see if I can get the whole storyline right. So you started off as a cities skylines influencer, making videos on the YouTube channel Do Not Eat 01.
I don't like the term influencer. It makes me feel like I take pictures on Instagram and then get free trips to Dubai.
But yeah, you were a figure in the city skylines community, to the point where you got like interviewed by Paradox randomly one time.
Well, I wasn't that random. They did set it up and then fly themselves over here.
Fair, yeah. But then you shifted gears a couple years ago by getting signed up to the podcast. Well, There's Your Problem. Branded as a podcast with slides that's about engineering disasters with you, Liam, and Alice. And now it seems to have really taken off.
It's a podcast and people like listening to it, and it makes money. It's nice.
That's all. That's all you can ask for with a podcast.
Yes.
Living the dream.
But yeah, I have ever since I talked to Matt Thought Slime, who said that the best YouTuber was Do Not Eat 01. I've been into getting into this because urban design, engineering, how many decisions about why our cities look the way they are designed by years of racism and oppression. Perfect, great stuff.
Yes.
Can't recommend it enough.
That does sound right up your alley. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked the first thing that kind of took me away, and like my brain broke a little bit because I had, my urban design knowledge was whether I chose green, yellow, or red in Sim City, and then people complaining because I refused to figure out how to give everybody water because I thought that the water system was too annoying, so I just never gave anyone water.
Use wells. It's fine.
Yeah.
Get a septic tank.
It's perfect. But ever since I saw the whole, when you said that statement about like, that's not how cities work. Like the cities aren't like these things that you can like, demolishing things costs money. When you make decisions based on the priorities of the time you live in, you're making decisions in glass and steel and concrete. And it's not easy necessarily to get rid of it. And that these decisions have consequences. And you've shown like, I know I'm like pitching the channel really hard, but like there's videos where you talk about how like an urban highway through a city demolishes entire neighborhoods and like destroys the entire flow of a city, or how the need for parking, like parking requirements, completely destroy the function of downtown cities and stuff. It's like,
dang, cars.
I get this now.
Cars are bad.
You know what else is surprisingly resilient to change is henges, actually.
Oh yeah,
interesting. Yeah, because you bring that up. Yeah,
Thank you, guys, for keeping us on topic.
So I believe these Stonehenge they tried to tear it down several times during like the Middle Ages, and just no one could go through with it.
Yeah, big rocks.
It was too difficult.
How do you do it?
Yeah, we kind of forgot about how like a lot of the stuff that's like from like ancient times that is gone. Like there's a reason why it's gone. It's not just because of like weather, but it's because like in the Middle Ages, people just didn't kind of give a shit about history, and so like they just took stuff from that to build things. Like I think the big one is like how a good chunk of the Colosseum is gone because people just took stones from it to build
needed
stuff.
Stones.
They took stones out, not just build stuff, but also they burned the marble to make lime. A big one was the little stone clips between all the big stones. They'd take those out and melt them down into whatever they needed it for. It's surprising that some of the stuff survived as long as it did. The other thing is despite all this, there are still like ancient Roman buildings in use as regular buildings in Rome, which is kind of funny.
Oh, dang. That's awesome.
Yeah, every time I remember once being like kind of impressed when I moved into my house, and it's like, this house is 100 years old. And then Mia was like, only? Like in Sweden, like I live in a Viking log house. What about you? But yeah, we are talking about Stonehenge today. Finally. 109 episodes in. Now, there's some significant reason why there is a reason why it took 109 episodes for us to get to it, but that I can save for later. No, it's part of me making you sad. So
okay, all right.
Also, this is a podcast called "It's Probably Not Aliens."
Oh yes, sorry.
We talk about ancient astronaut theory, ancient aliens, pseudo-history, pseudo-archaeology, and this is our first show since we took a few weeks off for the holidays. So
we burned all of our back catalog. We are doing this live, baby.
Yeah, we are raw.
My name is Scott Nicewander. I know nothing. I come to this podcast with clear eyes, full hearts, and I'm just here to learn, as Tristan tells me about Stonehenge, finally. And he can answer for his crimes for not doing it sooner.
Yeah, I'm Tristan Johnson, and I still am. I somehow continue to am.
It's true.
But here's basically the main gist about what millions of people around the world, millions of ancient astronaut theorists believe. Yeah, that Stonehenge is, first of all, Stonehenge is what archaeologists call really, really fucking old. But there are some people who suggest that it's even older than that.
Oh.
Old as balls.
Well, that's the technical term for it that they do use. Balls. Mainstream archaeologists use the term old as balls.
You'll be surprised, though, to find out, Scott, that this follows, as we've called, the two genders of pseudo-archaeology. So the two genders of pseudo-archaeology being that, one, everything is from an ancient civilization of Atlanteans who were most definitely white in the Stone Age.
Yep,
right. In the Ice Age, that built things way older. We call that the Graham-Cock hypothesis. The second would be, no, it's aliens.
No, it's aliens.
You're being ridiculous.
Yes.
You're being ridiculous. It's obviously aliens. So those are like the two claims about Stonehenge. So like the first one is, an ancient civilization of very definitely white people made it. That it has, like possibly Atlantis.
Sure.
And that there was like this, it's part of a vast network of ancient advanced societies. But the other is that it was built by aliens, mostly pointing to things like how Stonehenge has interesting, precise alignments of stones to celestial bodies. And it's often cited as evidence of advanced astronomical knowledge that people who could look at stars would not possibly be able to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like you just, wait there until the day that you wanted it to align with something and then draw a line in the ground with a stick. That's impossible. Can't do that.
Can't do that. Can't look up. People back then couldn't look up. They couldn't look up at the sky. They didn't know how.
They're like dogs. If they looked up, they drowned.
Yeah.
As a fan of architecture, people still can't look up. No one's ever seen the second floor of a building from the outside. I'm pretty certain.
And no one knows. They're like, wow, all of these buildings are so flat and so small. If only we could go up. But how?
Humans are secretly two-dimensional.
Yes.
But the idea is the other aspect that it goes down is that that Stonehenge is so complex, and the precision and the bigness of the rocks. How move big rock?
How move big rock? We're back. We're back at it.
It's a classic of the show. Some theories have also proposed, again, citation needed, but that Stonehenge maybe was a landing pad for spacecraft.
Of course.
Other claims include it being a portal to another world.
Yep.
Or that it was used somehow for communication with extraterrestrials, or just that it has stuff to do with magic or ancient druids or any other sort of interesting, mystical, esoteric need. I guess there are actually 3 genders of pseudoarchaeology. There's Gramcock, there's ancient aliens, and then there's magic.
Magic could do it. I've heard I've not heard the Atlantis one tied to Stonehenge, but aliens and magic, absolutely, like top tier. Like that's what people think. People usually think one or the other for Stonehenge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's either that or it's like one of those big old fashioned over the horizon radar setups like the Russians had, except executed in stone, which I assume works.
It must work.
Yeah,
they were communicating with like what's it called? We kind of mentioned that they were tied into the world grid.
Oh yes.
I don't know if you knew this, but the world is full of grid energy, and if you just build stuff on certain points, it can power stuff.
Yeah, natural energy from ley lines and things like that. And if you line it up, then you don't need electricity or anything. So that's pretty cool.
Well, I think it probably did. It did use electricity. It's just that copper thieves got to it.
Yeah, they didn't put back in the Stone Age. They didn't know to put that sign on it that says that it's a composite and therefore has no market value.
Yeah. That would be smart. That would be a smart thing to do.
Okay, so let's go to the basic rundown of the claims. So the first, the origins of the ancient astronaut claims around Stonehenge originate in a certain 1968 book by one Eric von Daniken.
Oh no. He's back.
Yeah, we haven't. Von Daniken hasn't come back in quite a while.
Yeah.
But in Chariots of the Gods, in 1968, he was the one that's responsible for popularizing the idea that the Stonehenge and other ancient monuments were created by aliens. He claimed that these monuments were built by aliens, that their complexity and scale were evidence that they're beyond human capabilities. And his theories have been, of course, widely debunked because we actually have a reasonably decent idea of how Stonehenge was built, but
it's just some rocks. It's just big rocks.
Rocks trip them up so bad, Justin. Rocks trip these people up so much. We went to
the ancient aliens people really have really struggled with the concept of fulcrums.
Yeah.
Wow.
We went to see at some point we'll stop mentioning this on shows, but it's just so fresh in our minds still. We went to see Ancient Aliens live with some of the people in the show, and they constantly talked about like, forget about the carving or whatever. We're talking about transport. How did they transport these big rocks from one place to another? There's no way they could have done it. There's no way they could have moved it in these weird positions. It's like all they think about at night. And
we're going to get to the bottom. During the show when they were talking about that, they're like, England's a hard place to move things around. It's full of hills and rivers. And I'm like, man, I hope someday they learn how to transport things on rivers.
Yeah, I was like, okay, you could probably build this thing called a boat. Those are good for moving big things like stones.
Yeah, it's great, actually. They're fantastic.
I've heard theories. So that's the main part. Then the size and its complexity are too advanced for Neolithic people when it was built in the sort of Stone Age. And
come on, lithic is right there in the name.
Yeah,
these guys are good with rocks.
They're so good with them.
It's their one thing.
They only had, exactly. It's like, they're living the Fred Flintstone lifestyle back then.
And Flintstone is in his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see, that's the thing. It wasn't aliens. They had their Brontosaurus lifted up and drop it into place.
Yes, exactly.
And then when it was quitting time, they just sailed down the tail and into their walking car.
That's right.
Yes.
But if it was if it was not Stonehenge, but was like Tokamak-henge, that might be a little bit more interesting. Then I'd be like, okay, I can believe that Stone Age people could move stones. I don't know if they could build a fusion reactor, but that would be more of a surprise.
Yes.
So, but yeah, the other sticking point is not only they move big rock, but as we pointed out, that everything is aligned precisely with various astronomical phenomena, specifically the solstices. The sun rises at a very specific point in Stonehenge on the summer solstice, and it sets at a certain time at the winter solstice. There's also the idea that it was obviously not aliens, but that it meant that there was this ancient civilization, again, the Atlanteans, that built it with advanced technology, which is sort of this, again, the Graham-Cock hypothesis, just to kind of give everybody a background, is that there was an ancient, highly advanced civilization that lived in the Pleistocene, and that they seeded all of the knowledge on how to build civilization afterwards. That's sort of the concept. Very popular with Joe Rogan, actually. Interesting enough.
Developed this incredibly advanced technology of putting rocks on top of other rocks.
Yeah. And I mean, and we haven't debunked anything yet, but maybe that makes some sort of satellite communication device with aliens, and they were able to figure that out. That's pretty impressive. So
I like the idea that it's an incredibly advanced ancient civilization, but the pinnacle of their technology is like a road crane, like one of those big Liebherr road cranes, you know? And
Absolutely.
it's like this is the peak of civilization.
We'll never get any better than this.
Dear MacGyver, here is 20 tons of granite. Please build a communication device
for our alien overlords.
So why don't I just dive into the thing? So first of all, let's talk about advanced construction claims. Advanced, again, we've kind of danced around this because it's extremely funny. The advanced construction of the impossibility of being able to move rocks and put them in place. Again, we're kind of coming back to a constant theme in ancient astronaut theory, which is just the denial of the existence of simple machines. Like it's fulcrums. It's have you ever
lever, pulley, lever,
yes, screw,
first, second, third class lever.
Yes,
it's easy.
Yes, easy.
Like, and the thing is that every time you hear about these impossible constructions being done by ancient civilizations, then when the archaeologists get their hands on things, they find that, oh no, it was a pulley. It was a pulley and just having lots of time on your hands. And so I kind of want to talk about like how this works. Like, the study of the construction of Stonehenge is obviously very interesting because, like, we do joke, but also building something that sturdy and that heavy with that kind of material and moving things as far as it did was genuinely a very impressive thing for Stone Age people to do.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Look, we're joking because of the folks who don't believe that humans could do it just sort of on their own. But I think I don't think it takes away from the fact that it's so cool that humans were able to do something like this. It is cool. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It was a big job. It took like 1,000 years or something to do, right?
Yeah. So like, this is the thing is like, how did we find out how it was built? Was that we followed something called the scientific method. So archaeologists have been studying. It's not a common use here, but we have been able to, like, for example, when talking about the age of the site, we're able to use things like carbon-14 dating or dendrochronology to find a timeline of the construction of these things. And we can find, that it was built over a long period of time, that it was built very much aligned in the sort of capabilities of humans in that era. It's not even unheard of at the time. Like, we did an episode a year ago now about the stones at Karnak, the stones in France. I think they're called the Karnak stones.
The Karnak stones. We did an episode about that.
Yeah, and it's another thing of moving big rocks to build different stuff. It's not alone. So here, like, the thing, like, if I was trying to figure out whether or not something was of extraterrestrial origin, you would probably look for something that was notably advanced for its time and also out of context with the other constructions of its period. Sure. And this is not either of them.
Yes, like a cell phone tower, or I don't know, like a
Denny's.
I can't think of it.
Yeah,
a Denny's. Yeah, a Denny's would be a good indicator, or like an ancient Roman Arby's, the Arbium.
Yeah. The Arbium. Right next to the vomitorium, actually.
Yes.
The other part too is the claims about this being so, like, because of the archaeological work we've done, we have a pretty decent timeline of how it was built, where it was built, and the sort of things that were done there. Furthermore, on the other claims that it was too precise for the astronomical knowledge of the period, it is also another impressive thing, but also there's decent evidence that shows that if you do put a stick in the ground when you see the sun rising at a certain point, you can then put something there later and be able to align with it well.
Sort of what
Probably
Justin
why
was
it took
saying,
1,000 years is because, you know, the weather is so grim in Britain that they couldn't.
See the
They
sun
kept,
2 times.
yeah, exactly.
That was the main hurdle they had to get over, was the sun.
Yeah.
There's actually there's a Canadian equivalent of The Onion called the Beaverton.
Fun.
And they do a bunch of jokes. They do a bunch of very good Canadian jokes. Like the first one that comes to mind is every single year on New Year's Day, they post London, Ontario voted second best London for 162nd consecutive year. But the other one is there was a story about Vancouverites shocked to see burning ball of flame in the sky and like have noted authorities about its presence.
Oh, that's good.
Looking at the astronomical precision, like this is also very much within the scope of what people could do at the time with the technology they had. And we've kind of mentioned on the show before, but I'll get into a little bit later, that this was a society that had a lot of reverence for celestial phenomenon. And like, it's not uncommon to see in many civilizations, especially before light pollution, to have a strong attachment to stars, movements of the seasons and things like that. Not only because it's important for like, you know, tracking farm stuff when you say don't have calendars or clocks. So like knowing like the length of days and tracking those things is important for knowing when plant, when harvest, and when
how to
when do all
survive,
those things.
basically. Yeah.
Yes.
And so, and also just I don't know if you've ever been camping and you go outside at nighttime and you see what the sky looks like without light pollution, it's kind of hard not to have like a kind of semi-divine experience. It's kind of an amazing thing to see. And imagine them seeing that every single night. Like it would be, it isn't a stretch of our imagination to be able to say, I'd base a civilization off of tracking these and noticing things about them.
Yeah. I mean, every couple of months we go out to my wife's parents have a place in North Carolina where we go to, and it's like a sea turtle sort of like sanctuary,
Restaurant?
I guess. It's what?
Sea turtle restaurant.
It's a sea turtle restaurant. We eat them. It's delicious. But because of that, you can't have lights on past certain points of the evening because the sea turtles could get confused. So it makes that area super dark, so you can see all of the stars in the sky when it's nice and clear and there's no clouds. And it never ceases to make me like just pause and be like, oh my god, what? That's so. Look, it's beautiful. It makes me feel small. It's I don't know. It's stars are cool, man.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because like I wonder if there's any sort of thinking, like any sort of like link between like being incredulous that ancient people would have this sort of deep connection and this like sort of noticing of astronomical phenomenon and the sort of increasing of light pollution as we urbanize as a society, because then you could think about how like, because now, you know, we barely see the stars at all because of lights.
Yeah.
Well, you got to think this probably didn't become a problem until like the 1800s. I mean, it's not like, you know, apart from like, apparently there were some towns in Spain under like Islamic rule that had streetlights as early as like the 1100s, gas lamps. This was, you know, light pollution is just a non-issue, even in the biggest cities. Until like the 1800s.
Yeah, it's a relatively...
They're tired of so many people getting murdered at night.
Yeah.
And I also remember that there were some attempts really early on when they hadn't figured out the way to do it right, where one idea was just make one really big light and have it like hover over the city.
Oh no, that's scary.
You get your big moon lamp,
Oh no.
or your moon tower. Yeah, that's what they're called.
That
they
was
still have them in Austin.
Oh
yeah,
my
so like,
god!
I always love when there's like some sort of infrastructure thing that we take for granted, and you like see like the different ways that we took a stab at it when it first started, things like that. Like that's
so funny.
It's like that big the telephone switching tower in Stockholm. That's a good image where they just, you know, they have one central tower and cords that's just sort of drape off it to like every building in the city.
Oh my goodness! Like looks like a what's it called, like an electricity tower in the favelas or something.
Yeah, except much bigger.
It's always wild to see that kind of stuff. Anyways, but yeah, that like furthermore, like ipso facto, like I know this is like not the strongest debunking because it's like, hey, A lot of the points of this are really bad, and if you think about them for more than like 10 seconds, it does. I've been to Stonehenge. I've seen the thing. It's really cool. You can't go close to it anymore because of they don't want it to erode. And as we've learned, when you introduce people to ancient stuff, bad things happen.
We learned that
now,
pretty early on.
So like when I went to Stonehenge, which was like in 2007, you could only like walk around it, but you had to keep like several hundred meters away, which I was like, that's fine. I get it. I'm fine with this. But like, except they did say that there's some religious exceptions, because there are people who call themselves, there's like, neo-pagan druid type people who have like a sort of religious claim to using it. Although there's actually, because one of the major claims too, that is a pseudo-historical claim about the site, is that it was used by ancient druids for rituals, which is actually apparently not, there's no evidence that that was actually the case. So it was used by ancient peoples, but it was not, maybe it was like used if there were druids living in the area, but it was definitely not built by them.
It was used for that ritual of checking what month it is.
Yeah.
But I do want to actually tell you what Stonehenge, instead of telling you what Stonehenge wasn't, I could tell you what Stonehenge is.
Ooh.
I would love that. I'm itching to know, Tristan.
But first,
okay,
I want to tell you about the good word of product and service.
Oh, okay. Let's go.
Man, that was some good product and service.
Always is. Never fails to disappoint.
I'm excited to purchase and use product or service.
We all are. And it's great to have a third person here to validate the way that we feel every week. So thank you.
3 out of 3 podcast hosts recommend product and service.
All right, Tristan. What is Stonehenge?
You did a little bit of a Childress there.
What is... Well, people do call me a modern day, a real life Indiana Jones. I don't claim that I am, but people do say that I am.
Yeah. So first, I think we should tell you about what we're referring to when we refer to the Stone Age. So the more specific name for when it was built was the Neolithic period, or the New Stone Age. This is like the young, hip Gen Z Stone Age, not like the sort of elder millennial Stone Age like me.
Yeah.
They don't have TikTok. They have Tick Rock. That was a joke. Everyone clapped.
Tick, hooray.
Good joke. Everyone laughed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Podcasting a laughter sign.
it was still a sort of bird that you kept in your pocket, and then
that's what it was.
Yeah.
I got a tweet about this, and you just like throw a rock at a bird.
Yeah. It's a living.
We could write a Flintstones episode. When does Flintstones enter public domain?
Oh,
2060 something.
2080 something.
I'm trying to remember the thing, because I did send you the thing today where I found out that Steamboat Willie just entered the public domain, which is everyone knows. But I did find out that we are about 10 years out from Superman entering the public domain.
Very exciting.
I can't wait to see what they do with that
horror movie where they've already done stuff like that. Anyway,
yeah, that's just the boys.
That's just the boys. It's just Brightburn. It's all that stuff.
I'm surprised they didn't do a horror knockoff of The Great Gatsby.
Yeah,
that's just called the 2020s.
Yeah, we're living it.
Yeah, or the Social Network or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Neolithic period occurred a long ass time ago, or sorry, balls. It's old as balls.
Old as balls.
Old as balls, as the technical term. Beginning around 12,000 years ago and ending around 3,500, or at around 3,500 BCE, which would be about 5,500 years ago. Old as balls.
Old as balls.
In Britain, the stone, and because we when we're tracing ages like this, we kind of have to trace it by like a Stone Age in one area is not going to be the same as in another area, because it's traced by when people started using stones rather than like when people started, like, you can't really call like even though the Bronze Age was happening like in another place, like in Egypt or something, you couldn't say that the Bronze Age was happening somewhere else unless they started using bronze, right? So
so like before the Stone Age is the Wood Age, or like
Wood Age.
I think before that you're just in like there's the Paleolithic, which is the old Stone Age, and I think before that is basically like pre-tool use. For the most part.
I see. No
It's
one
just
could
people
figure out
vibing.
tools back then.
Yeah.
Or at least like the Paleolithic age is like very old, and I feel like when you get before the Paleolithic age, you're almost this is going to end up on a Christians episode for sure, but you're almost getting to the point where we're not humans anymore. We're getting to that kind of an age. because I think that we figured out rocks useful very early. But the New Stone Age, yes. But in Britain, the New Stone Age, or the Neolithic period, lasted from about 4,000 to 2,500 BCE because it was on an island. So it was a little bit, ever since the Pleistocene, the British islands had been separated from mainland Europe. And so they got things later. So only ending about 4,500 years ago. But it's a significant period in human history because the Neolithic era is considered the beginning of what, we would maybe in a less than it's the beginning of what somebody who maybe plays a game like Civilization for a living, or Seven Wonders, would consider the beginning of civilization.
Right.
The term saying the beginning of civilization now is a little bit it says it assumes too much.
Gotcha.
But basically what this means is that it was the development of things like agriculture, permanent dwellings, polished stone tools, and complex social structures. So that means like farming became a thing, and people started to live in more permanent dwellings. And you can imagine that is a pretty significant aspect of a change for the human species at that point.
Thanks to complex social structures, humans could finally go to a party where they didn't really know anyone and feel awkward there.
Fair enough. Oh boy.
It's what we all were striving for.
Listen, it's been 4 years since I've had to endure that kind of experience, and I
Hey, I'm glad you said that, because my wedding was last year, so that means you didn't experience that at that party. So I appreciate that.
What's it called? That's because everybody who I knew from every one of Scott's circle instantly became like besties in like 10 seconds.
It was
very
so
nice.
fun. None of my groomsmen knew each other, but they were all, by the end of it, they were all like, so we're all gonna continue this group chat forever, right? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, for real. But like furthermore, this this move towards that, one of the most fun things I always say is an interesting fun fact about this particular change in humanity is that you can tell in the archaeological record when society started settling and developing agriculture. You notice because they start getting stunted, their teeth start rotting, and they basically like get really, really unhealthy for a while. The reason is because if you live a nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyle, you're doing the following: walking a lot during the day, 2, eating vegetables pretty regularly, and 3, you are having a mix of nutrients in your diet involving plants, but also animal protein, all that kind of stuff. When you are a farmer, you still walk a lot, but not as much. You actually, I think you end up walking a lot more because agriculture takes a lot more work per day to actually maintain things, because you have to do the work for all the people who, because of complex social structures, don't have to work anymore. I think we call them rulers.
Oh, interesting.
We call them governments now.
It's true now, and it's true back then. No one wants to work anymore.
2, all of that varied diet of animal and vegetable proteins is replaced with, at the beginning, mostly bread. So not only are you not getting all the vitamins and minerals you need to grow big and strong, like your mom always said when she was trying to get you to drink milk, but now you are also eating nothing but carbohydrates, and that means that your teeth and sugar are not best friends, and so your teeth start rotting away.
Probably drinking those carbohydrates as well.
Beer is another classic.
Liquid bread.
That's literally how it started. People have recreated old beer, and it's not very alcoholic. It just is liquid bread for the most part.
Nice.
But the thing is that bread is what makes it so fascinating is that it's calories that are portable and last longer than fresh vegetables. And like the grains you use to make bread can stay in a granary for years without being touched. So you can store extra food for next year and like that kind of stuff. So like that's how the civilization happens. And then also your average person working a full day can produce more calories than they consume, which means that you can have people who say that there are, gods. They say gods tell us now that we need to get stuff from you, and that's how you end up with all of this civilization.
That's civilization.
This is now an anarcho-primitivist podcast. I don't know if you guys know, but
no, I believe agriculture was good because without agriculture, we would not have toilet paper. And if we didn't have toilet paper, we would all have doo-doo ass all the time.
Without toilet paper, we would all have to use bidets like Europeans.
That's a good point. Those are actually much nicer.
Actually, yeah.
But we wouldn't have invented those either.
Yeah.
You need to invent toilet paper before you invent bidets. No, you just like
to invent a bidet, you must first invent the universe.
You actually, the bidet predates humanity. I don't know if you've ever been, but Old Faithful or a geyser.
That's gonna be painful.
That would be horrible.
That works a little too well.
Yeah, you're cleaned. You're cleaned off of the face of the earth.
Yes.
I need to be purified. Okay. But then the problem is that the main problem with using something like Old Faithful as a bidet is that you would then smell like rotten eggs all day because of all the sulfur in the water.
That's why people don't do it.
That's the main problem.
The main problem. That and the third degree burns.
One.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Neolithic Revolution in Britain was, and I'm sorry, this will anger a lot of our Brexit supporting audience, but the reason that the Neolithic Revolution happened in Britain and it made society, much more developed and advanced is because migrants came to the country through Central Europe and introduced these ideas to the British people, to the ancient Britons. So there was a significant evolution at this period in social structures, sophisticated stone tools. I mean, we all know.
Have you seen what you can do with these rocks?
Have you seen rock?
Have you seen
a rock
things?
before?
I've just been like tossing the good word of rock. And
yeah. Look at my cool rock.
As we all know, Britain always gets improved when it is conquered, or when it's conquered anyway. As a person whose traditional family name is Bilodeau, I am perfectly neutral in this, and that England did not get improved at all by was vastly improved by 1066. And
I mean, every once in a while you got to go in and straighten out the Britons. I think right now Britain is ripe for an invasion of some kind.
That's true.
I think maybe we should annex it as like the 51st state.
There you go.
Or something like we gotta get these people back in line.
What a power move that would be, huh?
Yeah.
To be like, hey, we escaped you, but you can come join us now.
Yeah, exactly. You want a government that's more functional? Join the United States of America. Somehow an improvement over whatever the fuck they're doing there.
Or for feeling really spicy, Norway, I just want to let you know that the Britons have been filling their churches with gold for hundreds of years now, and you have done nothing about it. I'm just saying, if it's if you want to return to an ancient practice of visiting Britain for its beautiful churches and its treasures.
Yes, that sounds like a plan. I think Norwegian invasion of Britain, I think, is overdue. These people can't be trusted to govern themselves. It's time for regime change.
It's true. They found oil underneath England, I guess. So to kind of go back to the Neolithic thing, this is when we started seeing not only like stonework, but also tool making using stone, or using wood and bone. And Stonehenge was also built in this period, showing that this was also a period where the knowledge and tricks used to do bigger engineering projects started to become a thing. This is when they figured out, we can move big rock. If you balance rock on pointy thing, you can move very big rock.
Oh, that's awesome. We're still trying to figure that out now.
It's true.
Apparently.
Well, History Channel hosts, definitely. So, this is when you start seeing techniques like drilling.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of drilling myself.
Huge.
And the technology to move large stones, to build things. And you can see this also in other things, like they became skilled artisans in this period. You see intricate pottery, you see jade being carved.
Ooh.
And you start seeing these in tombs, which is also this is a part where things are getting a little bit murky, because this is like the suggestion that this is like when they started settling and farming is when they started believing in things like the afterlife or the existence of social classes. But interestingly enough, at another site that we're probably going to have to talk to about on this podcast at some point, at Göbekli Tepe, which was a older site than Stonehenge by like many thousands of years, shows that organized religion and this like social classes might actually predate like agriculture and settled civilization, because it's like another sort of megalithic site built before agriculture, which is wild.
That was just some folks showing up like, hey, let's build a henge, boys.
Gotta build a henge.
Nothing else to do.
I mean, gotta get, what's it called? You gotta spend all that extra, crack open a few of those liquid breads and let's get to work. So
it's like digging a hole on the beach, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just guys being dudes.
Guys being dudes, building a henge.
Like you know how like guys today, like sometimes if you're like, oh, I gotta like dig up a tree stump in the backyard or something, you get everyone over and you make a whole thing out of it. It's like that. It just got out of hand, and they ended up making a henge out of it. So that's the context of the period of Stonehenge. Like the Stone Age was this period where there was this like explosion of innovation and new ideas and a new way of running society happening across the world, and it did eventually get to Britain.
Okay, but you are still avoiding the question. What is
Stonehenge?
Stonehenge.
Yeah, Stonehenge is in Wiltshire, and it is
okay.
And I'm sure I'm just going to do all the takes because there is never a correct way to pronounce any city in Britain. So Wiltshire, 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 Wiltshire.
Yep.
And then probably just something like Wiltshire.
Wiltshire. Wilkesboro, Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah. Just add letters.
Whichever one of those. Yeah. I know that all of them are wrong, and usually the one that's right is completely phonetically incoherent. So that's the
bar.
Yeah, there you go. And it is a sophisticated intelled stone circle, and it is one of the most impressive constructions of the Neolithic period. Was probably what we can figure out about it is that it probably served in some capacity as a cremation cemetery, but also as a place for people to gather to celebrate the changing of seasons, at least during the 3rd and 4th millennia BCE. Its construction shows that there was a lot of use of simple tools and technologies, simple machines, and the beginnings of what we would call engineering. To kind of, if you haven't seen this before, in case you were literally born yesterday and decided your first act was going to be to listen to episode 109 of It's Probably Not Aliens. Stonehenge is a circle of stones where there are 2 vertical, very large, heavy stones with a very large vertical stone balanced on top of it.
No other episode of this podcast could we get this far into it before describing the thing that we're talking about.
It's a henge. Everyone knows what a henge is.
You know what a henge is. Think of a henge of stone. It's a Stonehenge.
It's a henge built out of. Think of the henge you have in your house.
Everyone's got hinges.
Use every day.
Yeah.
It's like that, but bigger and made of stone.
That's it.
To kind of further debunk the point about like how could people move big stone, I would also mention, because Justin pointed this out before the show started, that there's a guy who made a Stonehenge out of cars called Carhenge.
Yes.
Nice.
There's also just a guy who made his own Stonehenge. And it wasn't done, like it was done by a guy.
Yeah.
Is it to scale?
I don't think it's quite to scale. I think it might be like the stones might be of similar size, but it might not be as big and elaborate. But some guy in the U.S. who had a lot of property and time on his hands made a Stonehenge.
There was also in Rockbridge County, Virginia, Foamhenge, which I haven't seen Stonehenge, but I have seen Foamhenge.
Okay.
It's a 1-to-1 scale recreation of Stonehenge, but the stones are made of blocks of foam.
I'm looking this up now.
Yes.
This is cool.
It was done by Mark Klein, who is also notable for another roadside attraction very close to Foamhenge called Dinosaur Kingdom 2, which has a bunch of dinosaurs made out of foam, and they're attacking Union soldiers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's great.
What happened to Dinosaur Kingdom 1? Did he do Dinosaur Kingdom 1? Is there a prequel?
I think Dinosaur Kingdom 1 is actually called Dinosaur Land.
All right, there's enough. Okay, on that note, when you were talking about this Dinosaur Land, I have to say, there's enough listeners to this podcast that there has to be at least one person who makes mods for Victoria 3. All I'm saying, your assignment is in front of you.
Yes.
That is all.
Yes.
I've never heard of Foamhenge, but this feels attainable to me. I could go see this. I don't know if I could ever go see actual Stonehenge, but I live in Virginia. I'm like here.
I believe they moved Foamhenge to Cox's Farm in Loudoun County.
That might be even closer.
Near Centerville.
Oh my gosh.
I have to point out I was wrong about there being a reconstruction of like a full reconstruction of Stonehenge, because there isn't a reconstruction of Stonehenge. There are several. One of them is in Washington State. That's the one that's like the big one in the US. But I just realized that if any of you has $5 million lying around, one of them is for sale in Australia.
Oh, you could own your own henge.
Yeah, a henge to call your own.
All right, I did look it up on Google Maps. This is a couple hours away from me. I think I could go there. That would be fun.
There you go, on location.
Yes.
And then you just ask, how do you move big foam?
How do you move big blocks of foam?
It seems impossible.
It was like that Simpsons, like that pyramid made out of cans, and it's like it took 10 full-grown men to lift it. So the other thing too is that like many other nearby monuments and like many subjects of the show, in 1986, UNESCO decided to call it a World Heritage Site because that just seems obvious at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stonehenge was, we see evidence that Stonehenge saw continuous use for 2,000 years and has given a lot of insight into how people lived in Neolithic and Bronze Age world. It has, today, it is still historically and significant and symbolic for the British people, and is beyond the British people. It's also just part of the collective human story because, the Neolithic period, like it's a huge symbol of what humans were capable of in prehistory that we get very few good examples of.
And more important than that, it's on our podcast graphic.
Yeah,
I do like the idea of, what is using Stonehenge. It's like a guy walks up and looks through the stone. He's like, "Yep, it's spring."
Okay, I was wondering about that too. I wasn't gonna say anything. I was like, "What do you mean it's been in use? What are they doing?"
It's like, yeah, some guy takes a look. He's in Neolithic high vis with a Neolithic clipboard. He's like, yep.
This one checks out. Spring it is.
This one checks.
So
all
you're
right,
not wrong.
time to sow.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It does have a very practical use of being a calendar, and you can, by standing at the center of Stonehenge, see what part of the year you're in. It has had multiple other uses as well, though. And the thing is that, and this is when you deal with sites that are thousands of years old like this, they were not always the same uses at different times. The people, it seems, but through some of the evidence at the site, we have found that there was some form of ancestor worship. We see that there were rituals performed at the site that include honoring deceased ancestors, because we have seen the evidence of cremation burials at the site. The ashes of deceased were placed in pits around Stonehenge, indicating that it's important for some kind of ancestor-related ceremony. So there's also like a religious connotation to its site. These remains were found in what are called the Aubrey holes, and some burials some of the burials at this site actually predate the building of the earliest building of Stonehenge. So it seems that the site was significant for various religious stuff even before they built the henge on top of it.
Oh,
okay,
that's interesting.
The thing, though, what makes it interesting is that there is evidence of ashes of like cremation burials happening there, but not as many as one would suspect, which is making some of the experts at the site, like for example, archaeologist Mike Parker Pearson, who's like one of like the world's big experts on Stonehenge, that it might have been a burial ground for a royal family over many generations. Because if it had been like a cemetery for everyone, it would be full of them. But there was only a few.
Yeah.
So
has Mike Parker Pearson ever appeared on Ancient Aliens to sort of clear up any of the stuff that they've said?
They're probably, if he had, it would be like in one of those times where they do get a real expert on it and they get them to say like 3 words. They're like, Stonehenge is, and then they just like cut away.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm just imagining it like being deconsecrated in some way, that converted into apartments.
Oh, God. No.
Yeah. The henges at Salisbury.
Oh no.
It's got a microbrewery on the first floor.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, I think that place with pour over coffee.
Oh yeah. The microbrewery.
The IPA there fucking rules though.
It rules, man. That liquid bread they got, that's pretty good.
Yeah. But the thing is that this is actually a little bit of a hot button issue. There are critiques of this idea that it was a site of a burial site because of the timing of the things, and also that it doesn't necessarily confirm that this was primarily a burial site.
Sure.
That it might have had a broader ritualistic or ceremonial value. And also, so there's not really conclusive evidence to really say what this site was used for. And also, in the more annoying thing that academics will say is that it also was probably not used for any single thing for the entire time it was existed. And it probably changed purposes over the period.
Sure.
Again,
it's old. It's old as balls.
Yeah. It's a mixed use development.
Yeah.
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 Now, as far as the solstices thing goes, it was useful for tracking the year as far as like, agricultural cycles of things. But also, people were tracking the solstices without using henges in the past. So it's a lot of work to have a calendar when like just like, kind of tracking things was doable by the smartest person who lived in town at the time. So this would at least suggest that there was some sort of ceremonial or ritualistic importance to the solstices, and that they probably gathered there and did something that was associated with those. And
maybe there was a village of really dumb people, and the other villages had to get together and build them a henge so they could figure out what the hell was going on, like out of like charity.
Because they were like planting their wheat in like October, and they're like, no,
yeah, exactly.
No, this town just doesn't have a shaman. We need to like build them like an auto shaman.
Yeah. All right, look through this hole. That's when you're supposed to sow the wheat.
We couldn't have made it
like
any
they find like an engraving with like a painted arrow on it and like a picture of a wheat plant. Oh man. So, and then there's another one like on the other side that just says, that has like a scythe and wheats, and it's like, listen, do this one there, do that one there, you should be okay. Don't eat anyone between these two periods.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as the building of Stonehenge, it's pretty much it's pretty like it's been pretty well studied, and it seems that hundreds of people were involved with it. It had to be transported, shaped, and erected over a long period of time, and would have involved a lot of labor. Construction of it started at around 2300 BCE and spanned approximately 600 years. So how move big rock is usually two answers: simple machines or lots of time.
Yeah. This is another thing I don't get about the ancient alien stuff is like they had a lot of people. You can do a lot of stuff with a lot of people, including move big rock.
Yeah.
You
have a lot of people, a lot of time.
You grab
streaming services had not been invented yet. Video games had not been invented yet. What else are you gonna do?
Like, it's just a bunch of the lads in the village are like, hey, let's go move the big rock.
Let's go move that rock.
We got nothing else to do.
You guys see this cool rock over here? Do you want to like bring it over here?
Couple too many liquid breads, and all of a sudden it's rock moving time.
I mean, the pharaohs promised free beer, and they built the pyramids with it. So
exactly,
you can do a lot.
You can do a lot.
But like we have seen that, like at the site, we've seen like excavated a bunch of stuff to show the kind of tools that were used to build it. The primary ones being stone tools made of flint, but also antler picks. The flint tools, like cups and axes, were used for things like shaping the stones. We found about 50,000 of these picks, and also of red deer antlers. So 50,000, like think about it in Minecraft terms, right? Like using them, you use them up. So you have to like, that's one of the downsides of working with matter, is that everything breaks apart over time.
That's true.
Stone more so, or flint and antler more so, but they did do it. We also found evidence of hammer stones, which is a stone that you use to bash things with. And also they had rope with plant fiber used. So if you're trying to figure out how do you push the stone to get it erect, just rope.
Just use some rope.
Yes.
Rope and people.
Rope, big hole, bunch of people.
That's it.
Same story as well, actually it's not quite the same story as Easter Island. Easter Island did have a little bit of that, but they actually, I don't know if you know this, Justin, but they built Stonehenge by or they moved the Easter Island rocks by like moving it like you'd move a big fridge, like where they kind of like walk it a little bit.
It'd be like where you like take the door off so it fits through the entryway. Yeah.
They have to do that part.
Exactly.
Yep.
Oh man. On that note, fun personal story. New Year's Eve this year, get woken up because we smell a chemical smell in the house and our refrigerator is dead, and we were like, oh shit. Chemical leak.
Not good.
So we had to call a couple guys to come look at it, and they're like, yeah, your fridge is fucked. Sorry about that.
Your new fridge.
And then we call for a new fridge, and we got a new fridge and pay way more money than I'd like for a new fridge.
Sure.
And then they're like, they call us up and they're like, so can you like go without a fridge until like February? Is February good?
Oh my God.
And I was like, so like sometime in like late January, early February. Until then, my refrigerator is a little bar fridge and a Rubbermaid container on the back deck because it's wintertime.
I was gonna say, depending on the weather, you could skate by a little bit. But
classic Canadian move, keeping your booze on the back deck so that you can like you don't have to put it in the fridge.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's fun. Using in construction. So basically the stones were rough shaped using chipping. Ancient technique of hitting stones with other stones until pieces of the other stone come off. And then until it gets into the shape you need. Useful for making arrowheads, useful for making spears, also useful for shaping bigger stones. And they even found that there was they had like more abrasive stones used to actually polish it to a finish. So at one point it was very, very nice.
Nice and shiny.
Before the invention of sandpaper. Again, they were moved using plant fiber ropes and wooden sleds.
Easy.
Sleds also useful. And then also transported over rivers to get to the position it was in. Because the stones were actually quarried in Wales, of all places, to get to where it was at. So it did have to go quite a ways.
Had to go a while.
Mm-hmm. They also, they dug holes to erect the stones, potentially even using weights to help tip them upright. There's signs of mortise holes and protruding tenons, which I don't know what those two words mean because I'm not a rock engineer, but I'm guessing. Oh man, I probably should have Googled this.
I'm sure it's a way to keep them tight and upright, you know?
A mortise is a hole cut into a timber to receive a tenon. Thanks.
Awesome.
Yes.
It's like
Perfect.
It's like Lego, kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we saw in mortise and tenon. So you know, like when you have like a hole in a piece of wood and you connect it, and then you put like a tenon is like the little thing you put in to clog it up.
Oh,
yes.
little like dowel thing.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at.
Easy. I built this shelf the other day. Look at me. I know what mortises and tenons are. Tenons. I said it right.
Do you think when they finished the henge, they were like sad because there was no more henge to build?
There's no more henge.
There were no more henge. There were no more henges.
There were no more henges to build. Yeah.
We should have made it bigger so we'd have more to do.
What do we do now? We finished the henge. It took 600 years. We got to find something that'll take another 600 years to do.
And then
people are going to get bored.
Someone approaches is like, no. This is just the Stonehenge. We're gonna make a bunch of other henges made of other stuff. Have you heard of foam?
We're gonna make
a foam henge. That's gonna take a couple hundred years. A wood henge.
We have to invent cars.
Stonehenge.
And then make a car henge.
I'm sure exists.
So this fits into my overall theory because imperialism was to shortly follow. I have this. This is my invented conspiracy theory. It's not true, but I want to believe it anyway, which is the busybody theory of European colonization, which is that the CIA invented complicated board games to keep the Europeans occupied so that they don't default to their natural behavior of trying to conquer the world.
Yeah.
So like that, they keep Germany under control by inventing Ticket to Ride and like and paradox games. And the most impressive part of building Stonehenge that I always thought of is how do you get that vertical one in place or the sort of horizontal one, right?
Yeah, the one that's stacked on two of them.
The one on top. Yeah, that sounds like the difficult bit.
So they use apparently timber platforms. So they use scaffolding.
Okay. All right.
That sounds about right. Yeah, you just sort of like jack it up there over like a couple days. That's probably not even like especially difficult.
You could probably like tie ropes to it, put the ropes over the two vertical parts, pull it up just enough to put like a little bit of wood underneath, then let it down, and then just do that a bunch of times.
Just do that a whole
doing that over and over again. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's smart.
Turns out when you have 600 years to build something, you can find a solution like that.
Yeah. When you have people and time, put your heads together.
Yeah.
I think I saw like a BBC documentary about this where they actually tried to use the ancient methods to stand up a similar sized stone, and they got it done in like an hour, like an afternoon.
That's awesome.
Oh man. These stones were called the Blue Stones. They're from Wales, and that there's evidence that they were quarried, chiseled with chisel marks from wooden wedges, and were found at these quarry sites and transported using sleds and rollers. Your classic wheel things. Yeah, and to fill it out. There's a lot of folklore about the site. It's a big part of British identity and just human identity. There's legends that it was that the devil bought the stones from an elderly Irish woman and transported them to their current location. There's a legend that dancing giants, that the stones were once giants that turned into stones while dancing on the Salisbury Plain.
Right.
That'll happen.
There's a legend suggesting that Danes erected Stonehenge, invaded and put it up. There's ones that they were put up by magic by Merlin.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, I've also heard of that one. But then, you got to ask, what did Merlin use it for? Or did you just like look at it and say, that looks nice?
He was like,
I made
this
a
is for
henge.
me.
King Arthur, look at me. I made a henge.
I made a henge. It's the most impressive thing anyone's ever done.
So apparently, the legend goes that he transported the stones to Ireland, and then giants assembled them. So he was even hiring,
oh my god, he
cheap
didn't even
labor
do
to
it himself.
He didn't even do anything. Yeah.
Oh, so when you say Merlin did it, you really mean the workers did it. I see how
Giants,
Merlin
history
paid
never
for it. Yeah.
changes.
Yeah.
Hardworking, working class giants made that.
Yeah, exactly.
And like we see depictions of Stonehenge in like medieval chronicles. It's in popular media, and even today we see it as a symbol of like enigmatic timelessness. And these myths are still important to how this all stuff works. Are you guys ready for the issues about the patented section where Tristan makes you sad?
I'm never ready for this section, but people seem to like it.
Oh, I'm excited.
All right, we've got the whole range of human emotion here.
Yeah.
We did it. Okay. First of all, we're having a lot of issues with keeping Stonehenge together. So turns out thousands of years can do a number on everything, including rocks. So some issues are that periglacial processes, i.e. like the sort of period of freezing and thawing over millennia, causes things to move and change at the site, meaning that there's been like a downslope movement of like the big stones, which makes preserving it a bit complicated. There's also the big issue of, and I didn't realize this, but apparently badgers are a major issue at Stonehenge. So badgers burrow at the site, and there are badgers at Stonehenge. And apparently they're doing stuff like, while burrowing, like moving around artifacts or digging up human remains and stuff. And their burrowing can also disrupt the sort of stratigraphic layers, making that the layers and context of things move around, which is really important for doing archaeological research, and because where things are and how they were found is really important.
Have we scanned underground to see if they have a badger henge, like an underground version that's just for them?
They're their own. I have a new theory about who built Stonehenge. To build Stonehenge, you need to build a big hole.
Yes.
Non-badger burrowing animals are also an issue. Apparently, burrowing is a major problem in Britain. Animals like moles and rabbits have apparently like disrupted enough of the dirt to have some issues with potentially causing stones to shift or even collapse, especially in the warmer months.
Oof.
And they have done mitigation efforts, including an attempt to relocate the badgers away from the areas and building fences around them. But these are costly and can sometimes, like in building something to keep the badgers away, cause even more damage by building stuff around it. Because what use is a Stonehenge if you have to build like a giant wire, like wall, like a fence around it or something, right?
Yeah.
Badger-proof fence. Yeah.
Yeah. So then they have to like build. So managing and keeping the site preserved is quite a task in and of itself. Furthermore, a lot of that periglacial stuff, like a lot of the times where it's the most change can happen is between like freezing and thawing stuff, but also when the soil is at its softest, which is in like the hot, warmer months. And if there was only some kind of ongoing process happening to the planet in which the warmer months are getting warmer and lasting longer, that might cause things like this to be problematic.
Well, it's also, you mentioned that it's made out of bluestone, which from my experience, I'm not sure if the Welsh bluestone is similar to like the bluestone we have in the United States, but it's a crappy building material. It's really bad.
Oh, drag them. Oh my God.
Yeah, it falls apart real easily under, like, if you look at it funny, it will fall apart at you. So, it's almost as bad as brownstone, which is real bad. But the thing here is maybe what you have to do is maybe you have to consider rebuilding it in a better material.
Got to get some granite up in here. Bring in some Italian marble, put it together.
Yes.
Get some cast stone in there, put some coping on top so it doesn't weather as easily. Yeah. There's a lot of improvements.
There's a lot
I think
we could do
here.
Let's tell
the microbrewery gets in. And this site is generating no money. Let's throw like a.
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, we got to make this revenue positive somehow.
Are you guys gentrifying Stonehenge?
No, never.
All I'm saying is, if you want to preserve the structure, sometimes you have to make some modern interventions.
Make it out of foam, for example.
Not a single casino at Stonehenge right now.
Well, no, actually, Stonehenge did fall apart where they had to basically recreate it when they moved it.
Oh, no.
Technology's gotten worse.
Yeah. And then there's the other part that I also have to always get to because you're talking to me, and that is Stonehenge also has been co-opted by dipshit nationalists. So a lot of the claims around Stonehenge have been co-opted by political movements, including far-right ethno-nationalist and nationalist groups, to say that, Stonehenge is a part of a narrative of pure indigenous British identity that aligns with their often racist thoughts about things. The BNP, which is basically a fascist party in the UK, has argued that the megaliths at Stonehenge are achievements of the first indigenous Britons, and use that to push up anti-immigration, anti-multiculturalism, that kind of stuff, and has been used for spreading xenophobia and nationalist sentiments. Pseudoscientific theories about Stonehenge also being alien undermines the legitimate actual research that went into it. So the main thing, and I think this is like if you think about it, like in the US, similar, well, this isn't used in the case of Stonehenge, although there is a little bit of that, because like the other thing too is that white people,
Yes.
The development of white skin is with the combination of agriculture and low sunlight, because you're not getting your vitamin D through food or the sun. So that's like part of that. But it means that like, Paleolithic or like ancient Britain, people didn't have pale skin until agriculture was around for like a long enough time for us to evolve that, right? So this is why, like, for example, like the Inuit people don't have pale skin, right? So this part is like part of a larger story where like every time they like dig up like an ancient Stone Age British person and shows that they had like tan skin or something like that the BNP gets all angry, and everyone makes YouTube videos in their the front seat of their car about it or something.
Yep.
And trying to kind of associate it with this. But the thing is that this specific the kind of arguments used to dismiss Stonehenge as being built by aliens, a lot of these similar types of arguments are used for diminishing the work done by indigenous peoples across the world. And I'm case in point, most of this show. Like, for example, all of the things built in Mexico, like, or Egypt or whatnot. And the reason that it got us to like episode 109 before we got to Stonehenge is kind of an important part of this.
Yeah.
Because Stonehenge often gets brought up by people trying to defend ancient astronaut theorists against accusations of racism, because they'll be like, well, what about Stonehenge? We think that was aliens too. We are several episodes in. We're in like season 2 of Ancient Aliens, and they still have yet to really talk about Stonehenge. They've talked about a whole lot of non-white people stuff, but
I was wondering why it took them so long. Yeah,
Stonehenge seems to be more used defensively than part of their major argument. I guess is the whole thing that I would put together there. And it's almost like the token European thing that they can use to dismiss accusations of racism that have shown up over and over again in the way that they talk about ancient astronaut theorists talk about these sort of things.
That's interesting. In the fact that it did take them to season 2 to talk about it almost makes me feel like after season 1, they probably got complaints about that exact thing of just like, well, you guys are just being
well, I will
racist.
say that
and they're like, oh, no.
It didn't take them until season 2 because they still have yet to talk about it. I introduced this because we were having Justin on the show, and I knew that he was an engineer, so I wanted an engineering project. I gave him a choice of a few of them.
I see. So they still haven't talked about it, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And his reply was, and I quote, "I love a good henge."
Yes. I like a good henge, but the thing that's gotten me about this whole thing, it probably wasn't aliens, because aliens would have known to use a different kind of stone.
Aliens know their stones. They know their stone.
I would hope so.
Yeah, they have to.
Yeah, they would have found something like granite and something that's more that can bear a load better for over time.
If they're moving at like 140 miles, you'd think they'd pick something better,
a little bit better
within that radius.
Yeah. Granite, if it had been made of granite, like for example, like Pumapunku in like that was made of granite, and that granite is like that, you can tell because like its edges are still pretty sharp, and like that kind of like it's like held together like really precise, and you still can't put like a credit card through the gaps in its like in the stones. That's what granite gets you.
That's the good stuff right there. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The granite, or like the Romans used tufa. That's a good one. Although that may be a 4 form of granite. I'm not sure. Or no, tufa is sort of a igneous rock. I don't remember.
Well, if we make our own, we can make it out of ligma.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Thanks. No one took the bait, but I appreciate it.
No, I'm not taking the bait. I'm not taking the bait.
We're too smart for that. Well, I might be old, but I'm not. I'm not even old enough, or I'm not old enough to not fall for that one.
All right.
But yeah, that is Stonehenge, a very buildable thing that definitely has some cool like innovations and a symbol of a very amazing achievement of humanity, but is definitely not in need of tractor beams or whatever it is that the aliens needed to provide to make it possible.
And theoretically, whenever Ancient Aliens does legitimately try to talk about Stonehenge, I imagine they must at some point. We'll talk there. I'm sure we'll talk about it again. I know there's a lot of stuff that for time we sort of skipped over and cut out, but we'll be back. We'll be back. Just like the pyramids.
We didn't even go into archaeoastronomy and stuff like that. I had a whole section on that where we kind of just like, time.
We'll talk about it. You know how many episodes we've done about the pyramids? We'll be back.
Yeah. And now we're going to do a unique section called Safety Fourth.
Oh boy.
No. Speaking of, if you do want to see us a podcast about engineering and specifically when people also build things out of substandard materials and face the consequences of it, Justin, can you where can I go to listen to a show like that?
So you can go on YouTube or wherever fine podcasts are sold and listen to Well, There's Your Problem. It's a podcast about engineering disasters with slides so you can see what's going on. It's there. It's on YouTube. We have many episodes of varying lengths about various engineering disasters, which span the globe and which are, varying severity. And we make jokes. It's good. It's a good podcast. You should listen to it.
Yeah.
Extremely funny. A couple that stick out to me is one early episode where you have to explain to Alice why you do want things to move, and Alice talking about why she's like, no, everything just needs to be really rigid and then it's sturdy forever.
But it's very sturdy and rigid are rocks, and yet Stonehenge has largely fallen over.
And if you also want an episode that would appeal to people who like this show, you did one of the best descriptions of 9/11 that debunks the 9/11 truth movement that I think I've seen on the internet. So that is a really, really good one to cover.
That's a big one. Yeah, I've worked on exactly one controlled demolition, and that's one more than most people. So I have authority to speak on what's a controlled demolition and not.
Yeah.
Excellent.
As far as this show goes, if you want to listen to more episodes, this is our I've said it several times, this is our 109th episode. So there's 108 other ones you can listen to.
Yeah.
And you can keep up with that by going to probsnotaliens.com or by following us at probsnotaliens on Twitter or Blue Sky. And because of our tradition, we have Blue Sky codes to give out.
Woo!
All right. So free to a good home. BSKY-social-RU5IN-OF3MF.
Come join us.
Go on and say hi. Justin, you're undercover on Twitter for reasons that have to do with the Punic Wars, but are you on Blue Sky?
I am on Blue Sky. I am, what am I? I am do-not-eat.bluesky.social.
There you go.
Perfect.
Scott,
hi.
I wanted to learn about a series of Scooby-Doo records that might have gone completely lost and feature the most hillbilly Southern Shaggy I've ever heard.
Well, the British one that I don't have features a hillbilly Shaggy, but yes, Tristan does a bit at the end of these episodes where he features some of my old videos, but this is my newest one, so what a surprise for me.
I gotta throw you a curveball every once in a while.
I made a video where I accidentally discovered some nearly lost Scooby-Doo media, and I uploaded it to the internet for everyone to listen to. And I got a lot of great comments saying that they were listening to it with their kids and everything. So that was fantastic. You can go check that out over on my YouTube channel, Nerdsync, NERDSYNC. And it's all one word. That's just what I do. Tristan, what do you do on the internet besides this? I hear you also do YouTube and Nebula.
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel called Step Back where I try to show why having a history education is important for understanding why the world is the giant giant mess that it is. If you're listening to this the day it comes out, I think that my latest video is on the land back movement, but soon on its heels will be a video on Israel and Palestine, which I am
fun.
very looking forward to the responses from that one. But I am closely working with a close friend of mine from my master's, who is like, he has been like a multi-decade long Palestinian rights activist. So I'm really excited to make this video.
Yes.
And also just while we're at it, just check out Do Not Eat 01 while we're there, because there's some great stuff on there too.
It's still up. You can still look at it.
Yeah.
And if you are listening to this show, you could be listening to the next episode early, because if you go to nebula.tv/probably-not-aliens and sign up for Nebula, you get episodes a full week early. So they're already listening to episode 110.
We're already doing it right now.
At the point I'm recording this, I do not know what it's about.
We haven't recorded that one, obviously. Yeah. We're recording this one still.
And of course, you can always leave reviews on whatever platform you are, because that helps
Apple
drive the algo.
Spotify. You can tell your friends about the show. It also helps. And a really great place to send people is a very simple website, probsnotaliens.com. It's got links to all the places you can listen to the show, social media stuff, to follow us and things like that. So go check it out. But I believe that's it. Justin, thank you so much for being here. It was a delight.
Oh, no problem. I always enjoy talking about henges.
Yeah.
You got to find some more henges to talk about.
Got to find more henges to talk about.
Yeah. That's all for now. Next week, we're going to cover the Tacoma Bridge disaster. And until then, the truth is out there. Probably. Because it's fulcrum.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a fulcrum.
Yes.
I see.
Yes. Lever.
Probably.
Levers.
Yes.
Inclined
Give me
planes.
what's that line? Give me a long enough lever, I can move the world.
Give me a long enough lever and a place to stand, and I shall move the earth. Yes, that was Archimedes, I believe.
Nice.
Dang.